each, whatever the contact number on Signal, 20 plus year in special operations at the highest level, picked a car that's bulletproof to do this. I think, yeah, there definitely wasn't mass casualties. He wasn't trying to hit mass casualties, because otherwise he would have done it at another location as well, or the bomb would have been bigger to take the entire building
I agree.
out. And so this definitely wasn't, in my opinion, this definitely wasn't incompetence.
Another thing to support this. So you got the email. He desperately wanted to talk to you before December 31st. He knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, January 1st was go day. Nobody was pressuring him. At the beginning of this email, we see, first of all, I'm not under duress or hostile influence or control. Okay, so he says that he reached out to you. He was very emphatic that it had to be before December 31st because he was doing this thing on January 1st. For some reason, that was a landmark day to him. Maybe it was just because big day for everybody, January 1st. But he was very emphatic that was the time. And then the thing he was trying to do was, overall, more than anything, was get a message across on the biggest platforms possible. He was trying to talk to Pete Hegseth. Why would you want to talk to the Secretary of Defense? He's trying to blow the whistle on these war crimes. He's trying to say this thing happened, man. Like, I can't live with this anymore. He desperately needed to talk to you, the biggest platform out there. He needed to talk to Fox News. I need to get this message out. That was his overall goal. In everything else, everything I've seen, I have not seen the intended goal was to kill himself or to create a mass casualty event. It is to get this message out. And how can I do that? What is the biggest bang for my buck? How can I get that done? That's what I'm seeing here.
Yeah. It's a damn good point. Wow. Do you think there was any correlation between him and the New Orleans attack?
No.
I don't either.
I looked at all of that. I looked at the posts. I looked at people are scrambling for news. Everybody wants to post something. They want to be the guy on social media that posts the groundbreaking thing. And I saw all these connections to Fort Bragg, and they deployed together at this time. And it was great. So did 500,000 of the rest of us. I was at Fort Bragg. Oh man, tie me to Delta Force. I must have been part of Delta Force and some side. No, I had nothing to do with them. It's this nonsense. It's a big organization. The Army is very large. You're picking things out and you're trying to make this a thing. That New Orleans guy was a staff sergeant who got out of the active duty Army in 2015, and he was in the reserves until 2020. People are saying in the last year he was radicalized. I talked to multiple of his peers, to include, I'm going to be very, very careful with this, former leadership. I'm not going to give what echelon they were at. Former leadership of his. There was no indication at all back then that he was radicalized. He didn't say radicalized. And I've seen the posts. I saw several people who were saying, well, we have confirmed posts that he was saying radical Islamic things. I don't believe it because nobody he worked with confirmed that. They said, no, we had no indication that he was like this. And if you talk to people now, they said in the last year, he was radicalized. He started taking on these more radical teachings of Islam and everything else. And he had this, he fell into financial hardship and all these other things. So you're telling me this guy who was a former 42 Alpha S1 guy, human resources, pushes your paper, and then an IT guy, 25 Bravo, is somehow connected to a Green Beret team sergeant out of 10th? No.
Well, also, they found an ISIS flag in New Orleans,
which
they didn't find any of that here.
I think that might have been just some silliness on his part, trying to take on some kind of Islamic banner of jihad. I would conjecture, all conjecture, say that is likely he has no affiliations to ISIS. But
I wonder. I don't really believe in coincidences, and both of these explosions happened in the same day, or both of these attacks, whatever you want to call them, happened on the same day. The attack and the explosion, which obviously wasn't meant to be an attack.
That's fair, and I don't believe in coincidences either normally, but I look at a landmark day like January 1st, and I think, what better day? Any day. I'm going to do a thing January 1st.
Yeah.
And I think possibly old boy in New Orleans had help. I don't think that he could have done all the spotting and surveying and assessing himself. He would have likely had to at least had a spotter to say, yeah, you're good to go. Maybe, but I think that's plausible. But other than that, I have a hard time making that connection.
You know, this email, I wonder who else he reached out to. This came in from Dabber GMIB or MLB at protonmail.com. So he was even using an encrypted email service, but which I think everybody in intelligence and special operations knows what Proton Mail is.
Yeah. I would imagine if Joe Rogan, Fox News, name some other big names out there, scrub their emails right now, they could probably find a message from this guy.
Yeah.
He came to me because I'm like D-list media. I'm the guy who has kind of a platform on social media, but I'm not big time, but I can kind of get things to the big time every once in a while if it's a big enough story. And that's what he was hoping for. He was just throwing mud at the wall, trying to get somebody to get his message out.
Well, it's going to be big time now.
Yeah.
But is there anything else we need to cover that you can think of?
Wondering if the traffic accident you were involved in a year ago is even worth pursuing? Chances are it could get you a check.
That you can think of. Jeremy?
Did you want to go into the other item we talked about in the ride over here this morning?
Oh, can I say it?
Yes.
Yeah, the man pads. Well,
I'm unfamiliar.
all right. So I'm saying this with, you can decide to use this or cut it out. This is hard to work with because keep in mind, let me give some background on this. I'm an intelligence analyst and I've spent many years validating sources, taking information in, putting it back out, telling my humenters, hey, this source, this is valid. Let's, give him a rating of this, do this, recommendations. So we can identify good sources in the field that give us information and we can say, yes, this is an A source versus an F6. This is just garbage. Somebody got paid for something. I still work in intelligence. I'm an intelligence officer. I work for a nonprofit. We Remnant Ministries out of Texas. In fact, the website is in my bio on X. I work for Dr. Pete Chambers, Green Beret. And we were involved in counter-human trafficking along with just providing ministry to all kinds of stuff. Border operations. Most recently, we've been involved in West North Carolina a great deal. And we had some confirmed reporting through two solid sources. And this is where I have to be very iffy. And I told him in the car, and he can tell you offline, I cannot say this on the air, but we had two solid sources, one south of the border and then one from an element within our own government that confirmed independently of each other that some Iranian-made man pads, so surface-to-air missiles, had come across the border. We had the location and everything else. Well, Doc, that's what he goes by, Doc Chambers, he put this out on a podcast, and I was very emphatic, like, this is not stuff that I like to put on social media. I'm an intel guy by trade. This stuff is not for social media consumption. We got this to Secret Service. We did the whole gamut and got everything pushed to them, and that's why Trump was pushing a lot of this stuff out when he was, because we had told the Secret Service, and they had the reporting and everything else. But we have not, to my knowledge, have not recovered those man pads. Now, I'm not privy to that, but what I do know we have done is we have apprehended the couriers on a second run of theirs, and we have local law enforcement got together with federal law enforcement and rolled up the safe house in, I will not say that on this show, but they rolled up the safe house where it was, and we have since identified what that issue was on the border.
Now, let me just. Where did they come through?
They came through an actual point of entry, in a legal point of entry along the border. I'd have to pull up the original reporting, but we had the actual.
So we now have Iranian missiles. Who knows how many?
And
inside the United States.
that is not something you're going to see in a lot of places. Like I said, I didn't even want to talk about it. It was one of those things where I was just amplifying what he was putting out already, because I was like, man, I don't know about putting this out. But it was something we found was pertinent, because at the time, Trump was still campaigning. He was flying around, and there was the reports were their intent was to take down Trump's airplane. So at the time, Secret Service switched things up a bit, and allegedly, from what I've told, they started flying him around on charters for a while until they could identify and kind of mitigate that threat. But that was the reporting stream that was coming out at the time. Feds handled it, off my plate.
You know, I mean, I'm with you on the not releasing certain things on social media. I understand that, but on the other hand, it seems to be the only way to demand any type of accountability or get this and force FBI, Homeland, whoever else is involved to dive into this shit and actually take part. And that's what we've been doing here on the show with Scott Mann, retired Lieutenant Colonel Green Beret, Sarah Adams, former agency targeter. We brought on Legend, who's an Army intelligence guy who goes by Legend because he doesn't want to reveal his name because he still is very involved. And we even went all the way to Vienna to interview Commander Massoud, the leader of the National Resistance Front in Afghanistan. And